Hey folks, David Stewart here. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Don't forget to check out the Kickstarter campaign for King Leopard. You could get yourself an autographed, jacketed hardback, or just buy the hardback, or just buy the ebook. So link is down below in the description box. I've worked really hard. I'm really excited to bring that book out to you guys. But today's topic is Bryan Johnson. I did a video on him last year. I'm not going to summarize the entire video. I'm just going to talk about the crux. If you don't know who he is, really briefly, he is a tech millionaire that sold Venmo and has spent that money and his time trying to improve his lifestyle to de-age himself, to slow down his aging. And he measures all of these different things in his body and his blood in order to prove that his protocol is doing what he says it does. And he has a broader philosophical idea called Don't Die. The crux of my original video, and there were some weak things with it that maybe I'll address in this video, but the crux of that original video was that his sentiment is a religious one, not really a scientific one. It's a religious sentiment. Him being a Mormon and having left that faith, I believed that he had replaced that faith with a faith in science, a scientism, right? In the place of God and in the place of clergy is science and scientists who are going to bring forth his salvation. In this case, the salvation is freedom from mortality or freedom from biological death. And he's pursuing that by doing all kinds of crazy interventions that get lots of attention to his ideas, such as changing out all his blood plasma or injecting his son's blood into himself or measuring his nighttime erections or his son's nighttime erections. But anyway, all of that happened, and I think most of the people were kind of on board with my analysis that it's religious. I've been talking about this actually for decades, that a lot of what we see as political ideology is really religious, and that includes environmentalism, and it tracks as very parallel to the traditional religions that you are familiar with, especially Christianity, but other religions as well. So this is popped into my feed today, and boom, I'm vindicated for anyone that said, hey, this is a religion. Dear humanity, I am building a religion. Wait a second, I know what you're going to say. Hold that knee-jerk reaction and let me explain. I'm going to read the entire thread to you because there's so much interesting stuff here. It really is interesting. First, here's what's going to happen. Don't Die becomes history's fastest growing ideology. Wow. It saves the human race. Wow, that's quite aspirational, and ushers in an existence more spectacular than we can imagine. Very religious, right? So I'm building religion. Here's the salvation thing, right? It's like, I'm going to save you from the terrors of this bodily demiurgic fallen world into a glorified state. It is inevitable. The only question is, will you be an early or a late adopter? Why is it inevitable? 4 fundamental shifts are happening right now. 1, we are giving birth to superintelligence, AI. 2, no existing ideology solves AI alignment. 3, with AI, our species survival is not guaranteed. With AI, individual biological death is no longer inevitable. We're at risk of extinction without a unifying framework to solve human alignment and AI alignment. So this is an interesting, and again, this is a religious framework. It's very religious. Just because something is maybe internally logical doesn't mean it's not religious, and it doesn't mean it has an external coherence, because a lot of these things are given, right? He's giving you a set of things and then drawing a conclusion from them. So first, we're giving birth to superintelligence, AI. I don't know that we are, right? There's a lot of problems with AI. AI doesn't really act like a human brain, but AI is very good at certain things, right? No existing ideology solves AI alignment. That's born out of the previous idea of what AI is. It's an aspirational future idea of AI, a science fiction idea, something that we would see in an old sci-fi anime of like a sentient computer or super intelligence. I think that's what lies beneath that, is that idea. With AI, our species survival is not guaranteed. Well, it's not guaranteed without AI either, right? With AI, individual biological death is no longer inevitable. Ooh, now that is a big one, right? Individual biological death is no longer inevitable. There is no evidence that that is going to be the case. Right. So these are not evidential statements. These are statements that are really built on each other on an idea of an AI being powerful enough in the future. This is a faith-based position to solve our material problems, right? To create the New Jerusalem. We are at risk of extinction without a unifying framework. Well, I don't know. It's an interesting idea. It gets you scared. You got to be afraid of hell, right? Not only are you going to die possibly if you don't join my religion, but we'll inherit hell instead of heaven. It's good to have a little fire and brimstone if you're going to try to get people into your religion. Why don't die? All existing frameworks are too narrow. Democracy governs civic matters. Capitalism dictates wealth. Religion cares for the soul. Don't die speaks fluently with the universe through physics, AI via mathematics, software via computation, living things via biology, humans via storytelling, truth via memetics. Don't die is a universal translator and the grand unifying theory of existence. Oh, we're definitely in religious territory. Now let's look at this great little diagram of these 6 things intersecting. Now, the 6 things intersecting, that obviously could just be the Star of David, a double trinity. But if you look at lots of diagrams of the Trinity, what do you have? So you have a diagram that's there to explain the divinity. The Father is God, the Son is God, the Holy Spirit is God. The Son is not the Father, the Holy, right? To try to explain the mystery of the Trinity. Here's what's at the center. Don't die is the God. The ideology, the concept is the God, right? So all of these things are parts of the God, and all of these things God arises out of in this case. And he's even using the religious imagery we're very familiar with. Obviously, a 6-pointed star, like the Star of David, would be part of that as well. This kind of symbolism is nothing new. Now, you can try to evaluate each single one of these. Democracy governs civic matters. It's questionable whether it does, and whether this is like, we shouldn't have kings or something, or AI ruling over us. Capitalism dictates wealth. In a capitalistic economy, ideally it does, but there's no pure capitalism there, right? A lot of people get wealthy because they steal money through government or things like that, right? Religion cares for the soul. It does do that, I suppose, right? That's generally the idea here. The universe, don't die speaks fluently with all these things, right? So it's bringing the whole universe together. This is the God that arises as don't die. What does don't die even mean? On a personal level, for years, I've tried to eat, sleep, and breathe don't die, literally, to embody it in every one of my 35 trillion cells. Practically, this means going to bed on time, exercising daily, and eating nutritiously. Measuring and improving every organ in my body, eliminating toxins, lowering stress, being with family and friends. As a result, I now have the slowest aging speed in recorded history. Science, measurement, and protocols work. The same methodical approach can scale to Earth, AI, and the human species. So this is great, right? This is stuff that is probably good, and this is really ancient wisdom. Early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise, right? Go to bed on time, exercise daily, eat nutritiously. Now, measuring and improving every organ in my body. This is where you start to get into a quagmire when you start looking deep into this stuff, because changing a value on a test doesn't necessarily mean you're healthier, right? It means you've changed the value of the test. And the value of the test is aligned more to like disease than not, right? Let's say you have, some kind of kidney value that's high, right? And there's an optimal range, which is people who don't appear to have symptoms of kidney disease, their levels are in this range, right? So getting those into that range means that maybe you're not having degenerative kidney disease, right? Because you would have these things that would show up in your tests. There's things like that, right? It's not wrong to think along those lines, and doctors often think this way. But saying, oh well, 22-year-olds have this measure, therefore, if I get my chemical measure in my blood down to that of a 22-year-old, it's like I have the age of a 22-year-old. Not necessarily, right? That doesn't follow, because we don't really see that. We can't really measure what it means to be 22, nor can we really measure aging speed, right? We have, you can quantify things, but it doesn't mean you're aging slower, and then aging slower doesn't mean you live longer either, right? Because we haven't measured this long term. Bryan is a single one-off case for what he's doing. And it's not to say his advice is bad, but what are you looking at, right? Adjusting levels on a test doesn't mean that you are more fit, or that you're going to live longer, or that your lifespan is going to increase. It might actually lower your life. It's like a 40-year-old has levels here and a 20-year-old has levels here. Why is it not optimal if you're 40 to have the levels of a 40-year-old? Why are the levels of a 20-year-old more optimal? This is a question a lot of people ask, like, well, I want to have the testosterone of a 20-year-old. It's like, is that biologically appropriate? This is a question that's out there. Are we designed to have a decrease of testosterone as we get older for longevity? Maybe the system is designed really well and we don't need to optimize our testosterone like we're a 20 or a 30-year-old. And maybe if it's too low, right? If it's on the low side, maybe we do need more, right? These are a lot of questions that people debate over a lot, but just because you can align a value to that of like a 20-year-old, right? Like it's like, I'm going to get my testosterone levels to that of a 20-year-old. It's like, you can do that by just injecting testosterone, but that doesn't mean that you're as healthy as a 20-year-old. It doesn't mean that you're as fit as a 20-year-old, because there's a lot that goes into the body besides that stuff. And I'm trying to list it as like a bunch of quantities on a chart. Why now? Years ago, I did a thought experiment imagining myself in the presence of people from the 25th century. Oh, he's engaging in prophecy. So this is a prophecy. This is a wonderful little religious prophecy. It's like, I have a vision of the future. Here's my apocalypse. It seemed obvious that they'd say, don't die is how humanity saved itself and merged with AI. He's just imagining this, right? He said so, right? It's a thought experiment, but he's presenting it as a prophecy. Now it's time we scale don't die to all intelligent existence using the same methodologies. What are those methodologies? Well, he has the methodologies of like, I eat, he sells you a supplement stack. And I've said like the supplement stack is actually priced if you're wanting to take all the supplements. But when I look at his diet, I don't want to live, it doesn't look like something that I could stick to. I would break down. How does this scale to humanity? Religion, science, and capitalism are history's most formidable systems for mass cooperation. Now, that is probably true. I probably agree with that. If they had a baby, it would be don't die. Maybe. I don't know, because you're giving birth to the don't die baby. Like religion, don't die is a comprehensive belief system. I agree with that. Like science, don't die is methodical, empirical, and rigorous. I actually agree with that. Like capitalism, don't die is a numerical value system. I don't think capitalism is a numerical value system. And I think he was kind of reaching for like, what's the third thing that I can attach to capitalism? I would say, like capitalism, it's about cooperation with others. It's about all of us going to don't die. That's what I would say. So if Bryan, I'm sure he'll never watch this, but if he's revising his religion, that's what I would change. We got to bring other people into it, right? But these are beginning to say, well, okay, this is what our religion is going to do here, right? This is starting to define it. Don't die informs what to eat and drink. Well, I know many religions that do that, right? Dietary rules. We're in the middle of Lent right now. There's some dietary disciplines, really, not rules. Disciplines is the more appropriate word. There are dietary disciplines in Lent. There are dietary disciplines in one of the other Marian fasts or in Advent, and there's dietary disciplines in Islam, and there's dietary disciplines in Judaism, including not just everyday stuff like kosher, but Islam has Ramadan, right? So there's dietary disciplines that go along with what you're supposed to eat and drink. Inspires hope of a possible utopia. He's basically explaining what religions do, right? There's a future utopia I'm promising you. Not the new Jerusalem in heaven, but one on earth, a messianic kingdom. Is a sturdy foundation for morals and ethics. That remains to be seen, because I haven't seen an ethical framework for how don't die is going to work yet. Maybe Bryan will bring it out for us and we can take a look at it. Guides commerce and politics. Possible, right? Enables mass cooperation. Now, that's what I go up. Like capitalism, it's about mass cooperation. Don't die is the universal game, the highest order meaning-making game. Just like capitalism, it's a global operating system you play whether you like it or not. There's actually some truth to that, right? We're all trying to not die. That's really true. Here are our goals. Don't die individually. Don't kill each other. Don't destroy the planet. Align AI with don't die. Okay. So what we'll find is that as you dig into ethics, the history of ethics, ethical philosophy, there's a lot more than don't kill each other and don't destroy the planet. Don't destroy the planet is a collective thing, right? But don't kill each other is like the most basic don't do thing. It's also the first thing it's the second bad thing that happens in the Bible, right? First bad thing is they eat the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. And the second bad thing that happens is murder, right? Align AI with, actually, I should say it's a third, because they lie to God too. So that's really, they eat the fruit and they lie. And if you want to call that two things, I don't know. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think, whether Cain killing Abel was like the second or third or fourth bad thing that people did. Okay. Align AI with don't die. So I don't know how we're going to do that. Do we program the AI to do that? I don't know. I think Brian's thinking a little bit aspirationally here because I haven't seen that yet. What is a don't die score? Ooh, now we're getting into some cool stuff, right? Don't die is rooted in entropy, the final boss of the universe. Entropy can be measured, and therefore everything has a die or life score. A cigarette costs 11 minutes of life. India's pollution costs citizens 4 years of life. Loneliness and social isolation can cost 5 years of life. Whether a human, a city, or a civilization, everything has a die score. It's the probability of failure in the battle against entropy. Okay, so this is an interesting thing because he does mention probability. There's a big problem with probability and listing things like that. A cigarette does not cost 11 minutes of life. You can't say that. What happens is you take all the people who smoke and compare them to all the people who don't smoke, and there's an average decrease of life. Everybody can say, well, I knew this guy who lived to be 102 and he smoked cigarettes every day, right? It's like, okay, he's the guy who didn't get the lung cancer from smoking. But on average, it reduces your life by a certain number of years. I don't know off the top of my head. So we take that and then we like divide that again and we figure out, okay, how many cigarettes did you smoke to get to the death point and how many minutes are you alive? It's like 11 minutes. Okay. The thing is, if you're a dude and you smoke one cigarette in your life, it didn't take 11 minutes off your life, and there's no way to measure that anyway, right? As on the individual level, we're just looking at groups. Things that happen in groups don't apply to individuals and vice versa. Your 102-year-old grandpa that didn't die from smoking doesn't mean you can smoke, okay? And doesn't mean you're not going to get emphysema or something or lung cancer from smoking. So individuals don't magically create group trends, and group trends don't percolate down to the individual level where they have an effect. So smoking a cigarette doesn't take 11 minutes off your life. And if you only smoke one cigarette in your life, what happens? You smoke the cigarette, the drug has some effect. Maybe it damages a couple cells in your lungs. Your body repairs the damage. And really, it will take 0 minutes off your life because your body will just repair the damage. There's no permanent damage. Okay. And it's the same thing with anything else, right? Like Tylenol harms your body. So how many minutes does Tylenol take off your life? Well, probably 0 unless you're taking tons of Tylenol and you get liver failure from it, because the liver repairs itself. Your body repairs itself from the effect that drug has. It's the same thing with almost any substance that you put in your body, is that a really limited exposure to it, your body can heal from, right? It's that chronic exposure. It's smoking cigarettes all the time. It's smoking lots of cigarettes over a long period of time that raise the risk of cancer. That doesn't mean you're destined to get it, but the risk will be up. And so if you take a group, then you can reasonably assume there'll be a larger number of people getting lung cancer in the smoker group versus the non-smoker group. That doesn't percolate down to the individual. A lot of people don't get this. Same thing with like India's pollution costs citizens 4 years of life. It's like, I'm not sure where he's pulling that out. Maybe India has a 4 year less general lifespan, right? So if you got rid of the pollution in India, let's say we know it's from the pollution. On average, Indians would live 4 years longer, let's say. Or maybe they wouldn't, because there might be other things in their environment that deaden that growth, right? So maybe they get 2 years back. But if you get rid of the pollution and they live 4 extra years on average, that doesn't mean you as an individual Indian gained 4 years. Like, great, I'm going to live to 94. And like, if I do all these things, I just keep adding years onto my life. It doesn't work that way because it's a probability. Okay. There's no guarantees. And that's what it is. So applying the average to the individual, it doesn't work. And this was something that I just didn't really communicate properly in the first video, is that Bryan is approaching removing hazards as the same as adding life. And he's approaching removing things that are harmful as the same as like adding years onto your life. So that if you do all of these things perfectly, like you have this perfect diet and you whatever other kinds of interventions he comes up with, then you'll live to be 100 and you won't die, right? You'll live to be 140. Sorry, but there's actually a hard maximum on the human lifespan. It's somewhere between, I shouldn't say hard, there's a soft maximum. It's somewhere between 110 and 120. People don't really live longer than that. There's one example, and it's actually contentious that she lived that long. A lot of people think it was actually her daughter impersonating her, but that's like, because it's just never happened before. I think she lived into her 120s. But let's say it's 115, right? If you do everything perfectly, the people that are 115 are also like not smoking and stuff. And, it's an old Japanese guy who's been eating fish his whole life, and it's helped his heart to stay healthy so he can live to 115. It's great. We can do those interventions. Maybe on average, the lifespan goes up, but that doesn't mean anybody's getting past 115. It's the difference between improving overall fitness and breaking through a maximum. Right. So if you think about it as a highway, here's a great way to put it. Like there's a bunch of cars moving on a highway, and we increase the average speed of the cars on the highway. They were driving 55. We're able to get them up to 65 by making the road wider and the lanes wider and flatter or something like that. We improve the road. People can drive 65. That doesn't mean that any car on that road can drive faster than its maximum speed. Let's say all the cars have a maximum speed of 120 miles an hour. It doesn't mean because the average speed of the road increased to 65 miles an hour that your Ferrari, or let's say you have a Ferrari, right? Like you're really gifted. It doesn't mean your Ferrari gained maximum speed. It still has a maximum speed that it's going to be able to hit. Maybe it's 150 miles an hour. It doesn't mean that because the average speed went up 10 that yours is going to get up to 160, or that doing a bunch of things that can allow you to drive faster means that the highest potential speed you can reach is any faster, like what you do on a racetrack. Well, I'm going to go to the Autobahn, and it's going to be a straight road, and it's going to be flat, and I'm going to be able to drive 120. It's like, that's great, but you still won't be able to get past the maximum because there's a limit to what the car can mechanically do. So doing all of these things that improve our life, we're not going to be able to live to 140 unless we are able to invent technology that's really far beyond what we could conceive of now. That can like repair molecules and stuff, would be my guess. But you can leave me your opinion down below, and I'd be happy to read it and see what other people think. Loneliness and social isolation can cost 5 years of life. Does that mean somebody who would be 95 would die at 90 of despair? I think that's another average thing, right? The people who are dying of despair and loneliness are not usually 90-year-olds. They're young people, right? People who die deaths of despair, who commit suicide or use drugs until they die or something like that, give up on life. That's not going from 95 to 90, that's dying way or like 60 years early. So actually, if you got rid of loneliness and social isolation, for certain people, you could give them an extra 60 years. It's actually bigger than just 5 years of life. It's not like, oh, if I spend time with my friends and family, maybe I'll live to be 95 instead of 90. No, it probably wouldn't do that much for you, but it would make you not want to die at 27. So that could be a huge benefit. Why call it don't die? But Bryan, call it live well. Don't die is so negative. More blood has been spilled over the definition of live well than anything else. My religion is better than yours. My government is better than yours. My values are better than yours. Don't die right now is the only thing every human agrees on. Don't die is the most played game by every human on this planet, every second of every day, more than capitalism and all religions combined. Now, there's a little flaw with this thinking, too, that I'll point out. Maybe you guys have thought of it. Maybe you haven't, right? So, I don't know. I want you to imagine, first of all, let's look at this. My religion is better than yours. Well, he's making that claim right now. If you think people should join your religion, now he says that you could be a Christian and don't die. So I don't want to take that too far. But if you're wanting people to join your religion, you are at least tacitly making a claim that yours is correct or more correct than others. My government is better than yours. Well, yeah, I mean, I can easily make that claim with lots of governments. As much criticism as the U.S. government gets, it didn't kill all the people that Stalin killed, right? Okay, my values are better than yours. Well, Bryan's making that claim right now, that his values are better than other values. So is don't die right now the only thing every human agrees on? I don't think so. I don't think every human agrees on that. Just because most people prefer to live longer and to extend their lives doesn't mean everyone does. Lots of people make the choice not to treat terminal illness or treat serious illness and die because the treatment might be worse than the cure. That's just an easy example. But what about war? People, imagine Normandy and, your favorite war movie and 18-year-olds going onto the beach and getting blown up and dying. Now, they would prefer to live, but why did they volunteer for the war at all, right? If they just want to preserve their own life. And it's because dying is not the worst thing that can happen to you. Dying is not the worst outcome. There are outcomes worse than death, right? Me dying is not the worst thing that can happen to me. Me and my family dying is much worse. Me and my family, my culture, everything is much worse, right? So people themselves will sacrifice themselves for the greater good all the time because they understand that the family and the children are more important. The tribe is more important than the individual, because without the tribe, the individual can't live. Now, I'm not saying Bryan's completely wrong here. Like, he does want to bring in the whole of humanity, but we have to recognize that not everyone's going to agree on that. I understand your concern also. Isn't this just about living forever? No, it's about making sure we exist long enough to figure out what's next. This is a faith-based position. But life is about more than just survival. If we don't survive, there is no life. That's true. But life is more than about just survival. Right? Survival on what timescale, right? Because for the guy who died in Normandy, it was about survival, not of himself, but of all of humanity. This sounds, or, all of his country. I'm sure Bryan's thinking of all of humanity, right? Like, Elon Musk is like, I want humanity to survive. That's why we got to go to Mars, so that we have a backup. This sounds dystopian. So does extinction. Yeah, extinction does sound dystopian, but was that a false dichotomy? Yeah. More blood has been spilled over the definition of live well than anything else. Don't die is the single thing every human agrees to every second of every day. Again, I don't agree, right? Don't die is yes, and you can be Christian and don't die. You can believe in an afterlife and don't die. You can be capitalist, socialist, atheist, spiritual, and don't die. Every belief system sits on top of one truth. You don't want to die right now. No, I'm not going to really argue with him on that. But some people choose not to live right now as well. Who decides? Bryan, what do you say about a mother whose life is at risk giving birth? What does she do? When the 13 American colonies left the British monarchy for democracy, they didn't have it all figured out. Who votes? Under what circumstances? Federal versus states' rights? They didn't have all the answers to all the questions. They were just pointed in a new direction. We spent over 200 years trying to answer these questions, and it's always evolving. So we're looking to the future. We're like, I'm beginning something. I get it. Don't die is the next great framework. It's how we transition into this era of AI and solving death. This is the moment. Humanity is entering a period where intelligence will either ensure its own survival or engineer its extinction. The question is no longer philosophical. It's mathematical, computational, and imminent. Here's our immediate action items. So he still hasn't explained what the Don't Die framework really is, right? He has a protocol that he follows, and he has a supplement stack that he sells to other people. But when he's talking in these grand gestures about saving humanity or something or whatever, that's a little bit more, right? There's a lot to that. What is this framework that's going to allow us to merge with AI? I don't know. Here are our immediate action items. Become our global community leader. Finally, I can get a job and stop doing YouTube. We're going to stand up 1,000 Don't Die groups around the world. We need the best people in the world. Okay, this is the evangelism part, right? To help us stand up to these leaders, build the infrastructure, and grow it. Forward to the most capable people you know. History will remember those who step forward in this moment. Who will rise to lead Don't Die into existence? Form to apply, right? So now you can apply to be a bishop in the Church of Don't Die. We're looking for clergy. We're looking for elders. Join our religion, and you too can be an elder. Become a Don't Die citizen. Download the Don't Die app. Track your Don't Die score as if, connect with others and start a local community. This is how we turn Don't Die from an idea into a global movement. 2, follow. Follow on X, YouTube, IG. Stay up to date on all. We have other plans that we'll be announcing soon, including how to build Don't Die in your domain of expertise. Rituals, rites, dress, customs, habits, beliefs. Boom! He knows what he's doing with this religious stuff. When the 25th century looks back at this moment, they will admire and respect those of us who could overcome the noise and see clearly in the moment. So all of this is religious, and he knows what he's doing now. I figured it was kind of unintentional because he's a Mormon, and so he left the religion, and what did he do? He constructed a new religion for himself that would kind of give him salvation in this temporal plane of existence rather than looking forward to some future salvation according to their cosmology, right? And I suspect that there'll be a lot of transhumanism stuff as we go on, like merging with AI. What does that mean? That could mean, to him, it could mean uploading your consciousness into a cybernetic brain or a computer, which kind of goes along, I think. Because he's a Mormon, he might be more inclined to think that way because they believe in the preexistence of the soul, which is, that next step would be something Gnostic, right? Like that your body is not you. Join and don't die. So we have a cut up snake. Now I can think of another religion that the snake was very important in. Someone mentioned this in my comments. Let me dig these up because I saw some really great comments when I putted this out on YouTube. So I just want to read some of these because you guys are smart and you always have like the best stuff here. Let's see here. Yeah. Here's what Susan Bird says. I remember I once saw someone do the math, and theoretically, if you never aged, your life would, on average, end by around 300 or so, by means of some kind of fatal attack, whether it be a car crash or falling and hitting your head wrong. It devolved into a cult much quicker than I thought it would, though. Yeah, I thought it would be a cult right from the beginning. People were acting like cults. They were attacking me right away without watching the video because I addressed everything that they talk about in the video, pretty much. And that's what it was, right? And so that's what it turned out to be. This is a really good point, right? It's a great point. Just because you get rid of aging, that's one hazard you remove, but there are many other hazards, right? There's the hazard of walking through the forest and a tree falls on you and you die. You get in a car crash, you get an acute viral illness that has never been seen before and die from it, right? The virus overwhelms your immune system. Your immune system doesn't know how to deal with it. You accidentally eat the wrong kind of mushroom and you die. Someone shoots you. Someone poisons you. Someone's jealous of you and murders you, right? Those are all hazards. There's so many hazards besides just aging. There's other diseases that we don't really have a way to prevent. There's contagious illnesses. I think Bryan Johnson would have a lot of faith that we'll be able to solve all that. But we can't get rid of every hazard, right? Things are going to break unexpectedly. Random things will happen. If you eliminate all randomness and all in the universe, you like you said, you have solved the problem of entropy, but I think it's such an astronomical problem. Oh, you're going to get hit on the head by a meteorite and eventually die. Like, what is it going to be? So, yeah, I don't think that's what it is. And I think he shies away from like, we're going to live to 140 because he just focuses on the message, don't die, because there's no evidence that we're ever going to live past 115. There's just none, right? We're not going to see that. That's totally a faith-based position, but that doesn't get people excited to be like, I believe that we will find a way to repair cellular DNA and get rid of aging. Yeah. I think there's another good one here. I seem to recall a famous incident associated with the image of a serpent and not dying. Something of a serpent promising humanity they wouldn't die if they followed its advice was pretty important to some religion or another, right? Yeah, so I just wanted to read a couple of those comments because they were such good comments. I do appreciate when people say, never doubted your sincerity for a second. These people are straight up bonkers. I don't think that, like, I'm hesitant to call them bonkers because many people fall into this, right? When they discard one religion, they pick up another one. There was no internet 20 years ago for me to say, I called this 20 years ago, but this is exactly what I said 20 years ago about environmentalists. And I met all these people when I was teaching at the university and when I was a university student that had a religious belief in environmentalism. They had, and it included all the things that you would expect from a religion. There was a set of behaviors that they adhered to, moral behaviors, where they like recycled and they took the bus instead of driving a car, and they, did all of these different things that there were moral activities from their point of view. And they even had clergy, right? They had scientists, climate scientists telling you that the world, that if we didn't do something now, then global warming would cause the sea to rise by all these different feet. By first it was the year 2000, then it was the year 2010, and now it hasn't changed by 2025. They're still saying the same things, right? The long-term predictions have just never panned out. But they're still doing the same schlock. Like it's kind of like the Adventist movement is a good way of showing it, right? Like there was this Adventist movement that happened in the 19th century and this thing called the Great Disappointment, where I'm trying to remember his name. There was a famous preacher, and he predicted the world was going to end in like 1842. It didn't end. He revised it and said it was going to end in 1843. It didn't happen, and everybody was disappointed that Christ didn't come back and end the world. So you have that sort of thing, right? There's an apocalyptic view of the future that you need to prepare for. And you even have high priests like Al Gore. Al Gore was really big, and people took his little inconvenient truth thing very seriously and didn't listen to any of the scientists that said this is a big load of BS. They didn't listen to any of that, right? Any scientific view that deviated from what they believed the consensus was, which was just their religious belief in environmentalism, was completely discarded, right? They were sinners and deserved to go to hell. And that's really what it was, is like, you're going to kill the planet by driving your car. It's like, I have to drive my car to go to work to eat. Okay. Yeah. Maybe now you can work from home, but like they had a whole moral framework that they lived by, and they religiously believed it. They never really looked at any evidence. They just trusted people to abstract the evidence for them and put it on a slide in a documentary. They never looked at the evidence themselves. And I remember looking deep into it pretty early in my collegiate career, and I figured out that most of it was kind of bunk, and there was lots of scientists saying it was just, there wasn't any evidence of what other people were saying. It's like, there's no evidence that the polar ice caps are melting. If they were, like, the sea levels would change in this way. And it's like, anytime something happens, it's blamed on climate change. And the people who have a long memory of this, like, you've been saying this for 30 years, for 40 years, for 50 years. And like the apocalypse hasn't happened, right? You've been promising Christ's return for 50 years, and I need to be prepared, but he hasn't happened. You're just a religious whack job. So no one was around for me to record that, because the internet was pretty nascent back then. But trust me, I was early on that bandwagon. Okay. Anyway, that's the big point I wanted to make, is like, hey, I said it was a religion, and now what's he doing? He's creating a pseudo religion for people to join that's going to act like a religion in order to propagate the beliefs he wants to propagate, in order to create a community of like-minded believers, just like a church, and in order to alter the world the way that the church does by spreading its religion. Okay. That's the main thing I wanted to say. So thanks for sitting through this little long video looking at this. I really appreciate everybody hanging out with me. Don't forget to back the Kickstarter campaign. It'll be down below in the description, and I'll see you all next time. Okay. Have a great day.